But it's about being the person that you would love to be and can have the courage to be if you will just know that anything is possible for me. But you have to enroll your own higher self. You have to get the troops all lined up, and so they're going to be doing what you choose to do in your life. And sometimes that really takes courage. How many times have I heard some of you say, what he did is unforgivable. Joel, you don't understand how I was treated. I mean, how many stories are there like that out there? How many of you are holding in your heart angers that you justify, and you can say, I have every right to be angry. After what he did to me, you would too. Not necessarily. There's a human way to look at things, and there's a spiritual way to look at things. The human way of looking at things gets locked into a cranial cage of justification. The spiritual way of looking at things says all things are possible if I will just enroll the attributes that are of spirit rather than of what might be psychologically justified. What I find is that most of us, and this could relate not only to human relations, but certainly to politics, economics, all across the board, we create a mental framework, and we protect that mental framework. And sometimes it takes going to a place where they will put you up against the wall and say, tell me how you really feel about that. Well, I don't feel too bad. Tell me how you really feel about that. How do you really feel about that? How do you really feel about that? And you start explaining, and the man who's directing, or the woman who's directing the seminar just keeps picking away at you, and all of a sudden, maybe you're screaming at him. You don't understand, the tears are running down your face, and you're using bad language in front of 150 people. So, anything is possible. But in order to live more powerfully, we need to be mindful of the teachers like Jesus or Buddha or Lao Tzu who taught us that you have to go to a different level. There was this really wonderful man, very successful. Why don't you share a little bit with us this morning, Ray? Sure. Grab a microphone.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Very good. So I want to share, there's a lot going on in the world. And so you can just turn on the news and you see everything going on in the world. So some is positive, some is negative. So the pendulum has a positive swing and a negative swing, a left swing, a right swing, whatever you want to call it. It's just cyclical. And so economists know if we have a boom time, we're going to have a recession time. The bigger the boom time, the bigger the recession time after. So, the interesting thing about the pendulum. So there are people that are able to influence the pendulum pretty well. And here's what I want you to notice. So where is the swing the biggest, first of all? At the bottom. How much of a swing is there at the top? None. And that's the interesting thing. So I call this the pivot point or the point of center. It's like us being centered. And that's actually what we have to do in this world, isn't it? In order to be happy, we have to be centered. If we swing positive and negative all the time, it wears you out, doesn't it? The interesting thing is, just with some minor adjustments at the top, you can alter the pendulum swing. And so what I like to practice is rising above the pendulum swing. And so many of you know that Lynn and I took an interesting journey in 2002. So I had this wee small voice that told me, ride, Ray, ride. Kind of like Thomas was somehow told, ride, Thomas, ride. And for him, it was seeing what's happening with people losing their jobs and living in their cars and almost homeless. For me, it was right after the 9/11 event, when my wife and I were reflecting on, all that had happened, not so much on the tragedy, but how people's hearts had opened up. And yet people were in deep pain. We could sense it, we could feel it as we talked to people. And so this idea that welled up inside me from that wee small boy said to ride a bicycle across the country, share a message of hope and healing, and get to Ground Zero, New York City at the year-end remembrance ceremony. And so we set up fire stations across the nation that we would speak to the public and honor the firefighters and other public service. So I know a lot of you have heard the story. In the book Ray of Hope for Peace, shares about our journey. And even more than that, it shares about principles on how to be peaceful, no matter which way the pendulum is swinging. It was interesting because that journey, there were a lot of fears that came up when that idea first came. And so as soon as it came up through me, I said, Lynn, I just got this air raid, and I shared it with her. And instantly, what do you think we talk about? Our fears, our doubts, the money, how are you going to do it? We own businesses. How are we going to operate our businesses as we roll? Well, I'm not going to. I'm not going to have time. And how far is it? It's over 3,000 miles. And how long will it take? Well, a couple months at least. And so all of these fears welled up. But then there was a peace that came over because Lynn asked me a question. Well, how would you feel if you didn't do it? And without hesitation, I said, regret. And without hesitation on her part, she said that we need to do it. And the journey began. And did fears and doubts also come up as I was training on the ride and getting saddle sores and all of that? Yeah. But there was something that I learned, and I learned it very sharply. And it was to focus on my attention on the intention. Focus my attention on the intention.